Jesus sat in the temple watching money fall into metal chests. The rich gave loudly, impressively, safely. Then a widow stepped forward and dropped in 2 coins no one would have noticed. Jesus said she gave more than all of them. More! What did he see that everyone else missed? We're wrapping up Mark chapter 12 with verses 41 to 44. Let's read verse 41 from the ESV. And he sat down opposite the treasury and watched the people putting money into the offering box. Many rich people put in large sums. This little passage is different from most of Mark's gospel because Jesus isn't teaching or answering questions or meeting someone's needs. He's just sitting in the temple courts, watching the people. We're told he was opposite the treasury. In the court of the women, the least restrictive area of the temple, there were 13 metal offering boxes into which people dropped monetary offerings. Why was it located there? Since it was the least restrictive area, anyone wanting to make an offering could easily do so. And what did Jesus see? The ESV says, many rich people put in large sums. A more literal translation would be, many rich people were casting in much. The important part of this is the were casting aspect. It tells us that this was an ongoing thing that Jesus saw while sitting there. It was steadily happening. Many rich people continually toss much money into the offering boxes. And then the scene changes in verse 42. And a poor widow came and put in 2 small copper coins, which make a penny. Look at the contrast that Mark draws. There were many rich people, a veritable parade of them. But now, a single poor widow approaches the box. In the passage that immediately preceded this one, Jesus warned people about the scribes. He said they devoured widows' houses, meaning they took advantage of vulnerable widows and left them with nothing. Are we to infer that something like that happened to this widow at the offering box? Let me know what you think in the comments. She dropped in 2 lepta, the smallest denomination of Hebrew coin, and Mark helpfully tells anyone in his audience who may be unfamiliar with Hebrew coinage that 2 lepta are worth a total of a Roman quadrans. This is a tiny amount of money, about 1/64th of a denarius, the common wage of a day laborer. So, as a modern example, if the take-home pay of a day laborer is $64, the 2 coins the widow threw into the box were worth a total of $1. In our modern comparison, a single dollar has virtually no buying power at all. How much other money did the poor widow have? We're not told. At least not yet. Let's move on to verse 43. And he called his disciples to him and said to them, Truly, I say to you, this poor widow has put in more than all those who are contributing to the offering box. Once again, as he's done multiple times in Mark's Gospel, Jesus signals that he's about to tell his disciples something noteworthy by saying, Truly, I say to you. There's something important that he wants them to see, remember, and understand, even if it takes a while for the relevance to register with them. Then he made a profound statement. This poor widow has put in more than all those who are contributing to the offering box. We have to read it slowly and drink in the nuance of what Jesus said. What the poor widow put in the box is more than, greater than, what all those other rich people are contributing. And here's the thing, it's not more than each of them. It's more than all of them combined. He saw many rich throwing in much, but these 2 lepta are more than all of what the others threw in. On its face, that math doesn't work out, so we, the disciples, and Mark's original audience, need Jesus to clarify. Look at verse 44. For they all contributed out of their abundance, but she, out of her poverty, has put in everything she had, all she had to live on. Jesus said, they all contributed out of their abundance. The Greek grammar here involves what's called a partitive genitive, which means that there was a whole called their abundance, and what they threw in the box was a part, or a subset, of their abundance. When they gave much, it was a small part of what they had, and they'll presumably be perfectly fine without it. But what the poor widow gave didn't come out of her abundance, but out of her poverty. She has very little. She has no financial cushion on which to comfortably sit. But she still gives. And what did she do? The Greek literally says she cast in the whole of her livelihood, the implication being that there was nothing retained for her to live on. So what is the point? What is this act by the poor widow communicating, and what does Mark want his readers to understand? The poor widow is unreservedly trusting God for her life, livelihood, and future. She's let go of even the smallest means of reliance on herself and earthly things, and has committed herself into God's hands. That's a much bigger deal than someone throwing in a large offering, which only represents a tiny part of their riches. It's important to place this little story in the context of Mark's account of Jesus the Messiah. When did this happen? Early in the Passion Week. So what? Jesus will be going to the cross in a few days. And when he does so, he will be placing his whole life and future in the hands of God, without holding anything back. The only hope he can have beyond the grave is by ultimate faith in God, his Father, for his resurrection. And he will place his entire life in God's hands on Friday of this Passion Week. The widow's offering foreshadows Jesus' radical trust in God, his Father. What else can we take away? An offering to God is significant if it represents a real sacrifice. If I know I'm financially comfortable, it's no sacrifice at all to toss $1 into the offering plate. It doesn't show a reliance on God because I'm at no risk. That $1 means nothing in the grand scheme of things. I can toss that dollar in with perfect assurance that it won't affect my livelihood at all. If an offering is an expression of faith and trust in God, the offering must correlate to a level of dependence on God's provision, as it did with the widow. One last word. Please don't rush to church and drop your retirement fund in the offering plate this Sunday. Rather, contemplate the concept of the offering as an act of faith and trust, and respond as the Spirit leads you. Next time, Jesus declares the future of the temple. Spoiler alert, it isn't good. Thanks for studying with me. We're getting into the home stretch of Mark's Gospel. What would you like to study next?